Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Woodburn Accountants and Advisors China webinar series on tapping into China's trade opportunity through traditional retail and e-trade. This is a 4-day webinar series where we will be looking at how to protect your brand, what type of trade models you can create, and then I have a guest speaker, Kevin Rogers and Alan Chow from Alander's Group, who are going to come in and talk about China customs clearance procedures and warehousing options that are available to companies. Today, you have joined us for day 1, where we will be talking about protecting your brand in China. So have you been traveling to China? Have you been distributing your name card in China? Have you been sending out emails with your company name on them? Have you been promoting your website in China? Have you been promoting your products and services in China? Have you exhibited at local trade shows? Have you begun marketing your brand in China? Do you have local reps in China pushing your brand forward? Now, all of these sound extremely positive because this is you pushing forward in the Chinese market in terms of market entry. Sounds all extremely positive and glamorous, but unfortunately, there are IP squatters and hijackers in China that register trademarks in bad faith to either then resell the trademark or use it for their own business to leverage off of the success of the original trademark owner from overseas. If this sounds familiar, I am under the assumption that is why you're here today. If that is not what is happening with you and you haven't heard about IP squatters and hijackers, then I hope today will be the point for you where you create a strategy for your trademark. So let's get started with a little bit of notes. Now, these webinars are really directed to 3 groups of people, and I would love to know what group you are in. So I'm a huge fan of interaction. This is 60 to 70 minutes of your spend. So use it wisely. This is all complimentary. I'm going to be here until I answer all questions that have been asked, but I would love it if you would also then interact with me and let me know a little bit about who you are. So I gear these webinars to newbies. Newbies are generally those of you that have found an opportunity in China and you're looking to educate yourselves on that opportunity, or you're trying to create a business plan, you're trying to create a budget, and you're trying to understand how you can protect your business, hopefully, and how you can actually evaluate the opportunity and grab that opportunity. Then the next group are usually the startups in China. So it would be those of you that have companies that are newly established in the Chinese market, maybe been there for about 1 to 3 years, and you have been focusing so much of your attention on the core business, predominantly sales or sourcing or service, that you haven't really thought about the other things like administration and protection. So I hope that you're on here today to learn about those things. And then there's always the experienced China hands. I tend to call them my fans as well. Those of you that have come to all of my webinars over the last few years, you're always welcome. I also join other types of webinars from people in order to further educate myself and get tips on how people are doing things in a different way. It's always great to learn on how you can expand your business in China and how you can improve it. So I would love for you. You have the chat section in your control panel. If I don't already know you, please interact with me. I would love to know who you are. Just type in newbie, startup, experienced. That's all you got to do. And it gives me a little bit of an understanding of the audience that is here today. I've got over 100 people on here, so it's just great to know a little bit about, who you are. As I said, how this webinar works, I'm not here to sell you anything. I am here to educate you, okay? So I'm here to explain to you the importance of protecting your brand, how you can protect your brand, how easy it is to protect your brand, and ultimately, why is it important to protect your brand in the long term, okay? So use this time wisely, all right? Ask questions, place comments. Like I said, I will be on here, even if it's after the 70-minute time frame, to answer all of your questions, okay? So do use this time wisely. I see people are typing in. I really appreciate it. Timothy, thank you. You're a newbie. Richard is experienced. David is a newbie. Elena is a startup company. Please, guys, interact with me. I love that people are starting to interact with me. It's wonderful. So what are we covering? Well, there's a lot of content today because I do want to give you all a very comprehensive understanding in layman's terms of how to protect your brand and why you need to protect your brand. And I will also be offering a large number of case studies to show what has gone wrong, okay? And I hope, you know, my actual objective today is to scare you. Okay, that is my objective. I'm here to scare you because the brand is something, or registering your trademark in China is actually something that people really put at the bottoms of their priority lists. And actually, it should be at the top of your priority list. It should be something you don't forget to do. Okay, it should be your #1 action point when doing anything in the Chinese market. So a little bit about myself. Okay, so as most of you are all working from home, I have not put on the webcam, and just a technical note, people will have a lack of bandwidth, so that's also why I'm not putting the webcam. I don't own GoToWebinar, that's my disclaimer. I use this as my platform to perform the webinars. I know some of you will have technical issues. My only suggestions are you may want to go on a VPN. Alternatively, you may want to use a landline to phone in. And the last option is I'm recording this. It will go up on our YouTube channel, so you will be able to review this and see it at a later stage. I do apologize, but I don't own this technical system. And if I'm speaking, I can't help you technically either. So we're going to do our best today in terms of making sure the system works. My last webinar series last month, it was my Wi-Fi that went out. So if that does happen, please do wait. It will get reconnected. You've got to give me about 30 seconds to 1 minute. I will be coming back on to finish today's presentation. If you can't stay on, completely understand that. Just remember, I am recording it. But you know, a lot of patience is needed in regards to the system. So my picture's up here, so you have at least an idea of what I look like. Haven't been to a hairdresser in over 4 months, so that's not really what I look like right now. But it gives you a bit of an idea. So my name is Christina Kohler-Kalucha. I am the head of business advisory at Woodburn Accountants and Advisors. My background has been, well, my whole work experience has only been in China, in Shanghai specifically. I have 16 years of corporate services and compliance experience in China. My focus is 100% helping foreign investors enter the Chinese market. And over the last 16 years, I've helped over 500 companies with their market entry advisory, their implementation, as well as their growth. I'm also a creator of the China Roadmap Method, which is something that will be reflected in today's presentation. And on that note, I just want to highlight, I will be doing a webinar on July 7th, purely on the China Roadmap Method. I cannot take that link. Oops, I cannot take that link and put it in the section. But if you are interested, basically the idea behind the China roadmap is to put you on the right path entering the Chinese market in order to avoid any obstacles and to make sure you hit all of your bullet points that you need to do from an administrative perspective and a protection perspective to make sure that your business thrives in China. So if you're interested in joining that, it'll be extremely detailed. You can. Just message me and I will put you on there. So let's get started with today's presentation, which is all about protecting your trademark. So why should you be concerned by protecting your mark in China? Well, #1, there are IP swatters. I'll be explaining and defining what that is later on. #2, there are IP hijackers. These people have nothing to do with your business. They've heard your brand. They are sneaky and they are registering your brand in China for their own use, okay? And last but not least, these are people you do know. It is extremely simple to register a mark in China. Anybody can do it, okay? So that means your suppliers, your customers, your agents, your employees, anybody can do it. All right. So as a result of that, it is critical for you to register your mark ASAP. If you are on today's webinar, it means you have interest in the Chinese market. And as a consequence to that, not that I'm interested in registering your brand, I don't have time or resources to do that. It means you're doing some form of activity. This probably isn't your first educational method of learning what's happening in China. Okay, you've been spreading your name, registering on other sites, or spreading your name or joining people on WeChat. People are hearing of you. Okay, so it is time for you to think about protecting your brand. And what I want you all to think about is, what is the value of your brand, and are you prepared to change it if somebody has taken it? Okay, that was a dramatic pause. I want that to sink in. What is the value of your brand to you? And what would happen if somebody took it from you? Imagine they took it from you in your home jurisdiction. What would you do? What happens if you entered another market and somebody else took it? What would you do? I want this to sink in. What would you do? Okay, do you have options? Do you have a backup plan? All right. Now, let's start with, we're going to start with the basics. What is considered a trademark in China? So a trademark is any visual sign that can be used to distinguish the products, the goods, or the services. Now, I want to highlight services because people assume that if they are providing a service, they don't need to register their brand. That's false. If you are selling goods, purchasing goods with your brand name on it, or providing services in China, you should be registering your brand. Okay? So the brand or the trademark is any visual sign. It's any word, design, logo, letters of the alphabet, numerals, symbols, combinations of colors, etc. Okay? As well as two or three-dimensional logos or designs. Okay? Now, what you do need to know is that there are certain words or symbols like countries or city names or international organizations that cannot be registered, okay? And I'll go into a little bit of detail on that today. But for example, the Red Cross, which is, everybody knows the Red Cross, which is why I'm using it, they can't register their trademark in China, okay? Now, I've used Woodburn as an example of how you can register your trademark. I have a logo, right, which is the WB and the red circle, and I've got the name, Woodburn Accountants and Advisors. And I use it as a combination, which is the logo and the name, okay? Now, what have I done? I've registered all three because there will be some promotion and some marketing that I do in China that is only with the logo, that is only with Woodburn Accountants and Advisors, and that is with a combination of the two. So I have actually registered all three in the classes that are associated with my business. So when you register a trademark, there is a list of 45 classes. Each class has specific goods or services highlighted. There is a generic class, and then there are subclasses within that highlight the specific products or specific services in that generic term, okay? So you've got to identify what classes and subclasses you are in. Now, my assumption is if you are not an entrepreneur and you are not starting your business as the first location being China, and you have a company already registered in your home jurisdiction, I'm under the assumption you've registered your trademark in your home jurisdiction. And if you have, then a very simple strategy would be to take that registration, look at the classes and subclasses that you have registered in, and use that as a starting point for registering your mark in China. So go to what you've already done, utilize that as the first step of your strategy to know where you want to register in China. The classes and subclasses system are not 100% identical with every nation, but they roughly are, okay? So you can use that as your starting point. Why should you, or who should register for their trademark, okay? If you have a trading company in China and you've got a brand, I mean, you've got a name that you're utilizing, you've got to register. If you're a manufacturing company and you've got a brand or many brands that you're producing products for, you've got to register. If you're a service company and you're delivering services in China, you've got to register your brand. If you have a China representative office and you are using letterheads with your logo on it, you've got to register your brand. If you have a temporary liaison office or marketing office, by temporary, I mean you've got, for example, a sales rep who is sitting in China. You don't have a company, but you got a sales rep, and he's going around distributing name cards, brochures, leaflets, product specifications, whatever it might be. You need to register your logo. If you are an overseas company with no subsidiary in China and no people in China, but you are transacting with China, you need to register your brand. If you're a company that's about to market into China, meaning you have never set foot in China, you've never distributed your card to a Chinese individual or a company that has company in China, you need to register your mark. For individuals about to travel to China, representing their company, you need to register your mark. What am I actually trying to say? I am actually trying to say that everyone that is doing some form of business in China, okay? Even if you haven't set foot in China, but you are at exhibitions globally and you've got Chinese people walking at your desk and you're speaking with them and you're giving them your brochure, your business card, you need to register your mark in China, okay? Yes, I am pushing this to an extent where, you know, I might be over exaggerating by meeting people, if you've never set foot in China, by meeting people at a trade show, but you want to protect your brand. Remember, what did I say? What is the value to you of your brand? How important is it? And if you're all on here today, it means China, there's interest for you in China. So you've got to register your mark ASAP. So first things first, okay? You want to understand whether you have the ability to register your mark in China. Okay, the most important thing, if you're not aware of anything about branding or trademarks, is you want to first know, has somebody actually registered the mark? If so, then I don't need to go through the process of registration. I have to take another form of strategy. So even though it is not required prior to filing, I do encourage everybody to do a trademark search prior to doing a trademark registration. And why do I say this? Because a trademark search can last anywhere between 5 and 15 working days, where you then get a result in the classes and subclasses where you want to register to know if there is any identical or similar mark already in China. And the result of that trademark search should give you a ratio of percentage of the success of registering your mark in China. Nobody should be giving you any guarantees, okay? Because it's not in anybody's power to know whether the trademark office will approve your mark or not, okay? So the trademark search should be a primary guideline for you to know what is the success rate and to understand if somebody else has actually registered your mark or a similar mark in the same classes and subclasses that you want to register in. It's basically doing a benchmarking to know whether your brand is being utilized or not. Now, another way of testing this, although it doesn't necessarily mean those marks have been registered, is to go on certain e-commerce sites and type in your brand name and see what pops up, because you may find that your brand is being utilized on certain e-commerce platforms without you being aware of it. And that might be an indication for you to check and do a trademark search to see if those people have registered the mark in China or not, if you haven't yet, okay? So it is important to really understand that. Now in China, I mean, I want to say the advantage and disadvantage. The advantage in China, if you haven't registered your trademark yet, is the fact that the trademark registration process is a first to file system. This means that the first party to file for the registration of a trademark will be granted the rights of that trademark. A trademark is valid for up to 10 years, with the renewal process being requested to begin 6 months prior to expiration. The application process does take a minimum of 12 to 18 months to complete. Now, the disadvantage of the first to file system is that it allows anyone to register a mark irrespective of whether they owned it, whether another party has owned it in another jurisdiction, okay? China is its own unique territory. People don't care whether the mark is being used in Germany, Canada, the US, Australia. What they care about is whether the mark is being used in China, okay? So this is extremely important because anybody can register that mark. Nobody's looking at the background of the individual or the company that is registering it. But what it means to you is that if somebody else has registered it, you are locked out of China utilizing that brand. So I'm going to say it again. What is the value of your brand to you if you want to enter the Chinese market? Are you prepared to take action if somebody else has registered it? And that action can be buying it from them, or that action can be creating a whole new brand. What do you want to do? All right. And again, I am trying to scare you. I want you to understand how valuable your mark is to your business. All right, so what considerations should you make when registering your trademark? And this is all about developing your trademark strategy, okay? So the first consideration is the trademark available? Because if it's not available, you're gonna have to go on a different route. If it is available, great. What you wanna understand though is you wanna do a bit of benchmarking and know if there are any similar marks out there, okay? The next thing you got to think about is what do you want to register? Now, I explained on a previous slide how my brand works. I've got the logo, I've got the name, and I've got the combination of the logo and the name, okay? And I use them for different things, but I want to have the ability to be able to use them independently as well as in a combination, so I've registered all three, okay? So the question is, what do you want to register? Do you want to register your logo, your brand name, your company name, the company designs? Do you want to register just black and white or also in color? Is the color critical to your brand? And obviously you want to avoid using names of cities, countries, Chinese presidents, or anything that might be a little bit controversial in China, okay? The next thing that you want to do is you want to understand who's going to actually register that mark. Is it going to be you as the business owner, the individual, or is it going to be the parent company that registers that trademark? If you are a larger organization, then you may want to actually set up a holding company that registers and holds the IP and gets all the licensing fees related to that IP. You know, there's different structures you can create to hold your IP. If you're a relatively small organization, then maybe you want to hold it as a business owner, or you want your parent company simply to own it. Again, large organizations will create more complex structures in relation to IP. The next thing that you want to do is you want to look at the Chinese class system, okay? You want to look at the classes and subclasses of goods and services to understand where you want to register your products. Now, a simple activity that I want to recommend here is you take a piece of paper and you highlight all of the activities that you are going to be doing in China with your brand. So for example, think about all the stages of your supply chain, okay? First stage is marketing. So you're going to be promoting your brand through marketing methods. That might be a service related issue. You might be then utilizing your brand on packaging or on publications. You maybe want to utilize your brand on goods. You may be wanting to utilize your brand on services, technical services, simple services. You may be wanting to utilize your brand on trucks for logistics purposes. You may be wanting to put your brand on the packaging. You may be wanting, there's so many places you may be putting this trademark. You may be wanting to put your brand on the actual clothing that you're producing, on the labels. You need to create a list of where your brand is going to be seen. And then you have to think about the classes and subclasses where you want to register. Because you may have a mixture of both goods related classes and service related classes. Okay. And it's you have to think about the full protection. The minute that somebody has taken your trademark and utilized it for a particular service that eventually you may want to do, you won't be able to do it. Okay, because they've registered it. You're locked out unless you buy it from them. Okay, so what I want to highlight from this slide is please do your homework. Okay, this is your research slide. I mean, this is all part of my China roadmap method. This is your homework. This is what the research that you have to do. And you can do this with people, with lawyers, with corporate service providers, with whomever you like, okay? There are thousands, millions of companies out there that can assist you with this form of research and give you advice, structuring options, details on the class and subclasses. What I want you to do is two things. I want you to understand what you want to register, and I want you to make a list of the activities you're going to perform where your brand is going to be highlighted. Okay? So make sure you do your homework. Searching your trademark, you probably want to outsource. Which entity will own it? You might want advice on that. So it's an advisory where you want to brainstorm a little bit how to structure it. The other two, very simple. Okay, what do you want to register? And then make the activities list and then talk to someone, brainstorm with them about whether that is a right method for you to move forward. All right, let's talk about the enemies. Okay, the enemies in China are the trademark hijackers. Okay, so what is a trademark hijacker? This is basically when a local business registers a trademark in China, which is owned in another jurisdiction by another unrelated company. And the registrant then uses the success of the brand elsewhere and demands license fees or even sues for infringement when the original products or services enter the Chinese market. So it's basically a local Chinese business that has registered your brand and is doing so in either to get licensing fees from you, money from you, or will sue you, again, for money for infringement. All right, so be aware of trademark hijackers. Okay. Now, I'll use a case study here. We had a client back in the day that finally, after probably about 4 to 5 years on the market, finally put trademark registration on the top of their priority list. And I joke, I'm honestly not joking. It came out that literally 10 days prior to making their filing, a trademark hijacker had filed their brand name. And they obviously did it in bad faith. And about 6 months into the registration process, no, probably not that long, probably 12 months, sorry, into the registration process, a letter was issued from the hijacker to the company saying, you have a certain period of time to stop utilizing this trademark in China. Now, you can't imagine the shock that the company had. And, a lot of things went on in their mind. Do we buy it? Do we risk? Do we know how much it's going to cost? Do we have the budget to pay for it? My God, my goodness, do we even have the money? We never budgeted for this money to buy it, or do we have to rebrand? Now, this form of hijacking, it can really tarnish the image of the brand, particularly if the hijacker has the intention to either sell inferior goods or sell inferior services under the same trademark, right? So it's basically are trying to become a global brand. China is a market you definitely want to go into, but there's somebody else there that has hijacked your brand, is selling very similar goods, similar services, and is basically tarnishing the image, because anybody who travels to China and sees this brand is going to think, oh, it's yours, and it's not, right? So there's a lot of issues there that you would then have to solve in either the form of buying the brand back or rebranding, okay? Then you've got IP squatters, and this is a serious problem for late registrants and occurs basically when foreign trademarks that are perceived to hold future value are registered in China. So for example, let's say you have gone to China to a trade exhibition and you are exhibiting. You haven't registered your brand. And you're sitting there showing your products, showing your services, and you're kind of gauging the market, right? That's basically a step of market research for you to know whether there is a potential and an opportunity. But then you have thousands of people that are walking by your booth, and someone sees the brand, he sees the value in what you're trying to do, and he registers it. He registers your brand, right? He sees the future value, and because you haven't done it, well, he's taking advantage of it, okay? And ultimately, again, the Chinese registrant is going to either claim for trademark infringement the minute that you want to go in the market, or obtain licensing fees from you. Now, I do want to highlight that, you know, the Chinese government is fully aware. I mean, we have seen it in the media. We know all the stories of hijackers and squatters, people stealing the brands, taking the brands, registering them in bad faith. I mean, it's all over the media. I mean, you've even seen the US highlighting, why should we do business with you? Because you take our brands, you steal them, and yada, 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 yada. So I just want to highlight here, it's not like the Chinese government isn't doing anything. They are doing things to the best of their ability, okay? So as an example, they now have created a Chinese database system for IP hijackers and squatters to basically highlight, you know, it's kind of a blacklist of IP squatters and hijackers. So you got to imagine these IP squatters and hijackers, they don't usually just register one brand. They're probably going to go out there and take 10, 15 brands and register them, okay, under their company. So it's basically, you know, the database is blacklisting these individuals or these companies that have registered these types of brands. And it's a way of doing a search, you know, to see whether you can sue them earlier than expected or earlier than hoped. The only issue is that most people utilize companies to register their brands in China. So a lot of these Chinese individuals have registered maybe Hong Kong companies or offshore entities, or some have even registered Chinese entities to register these trademarks, but they're shells. And it's very difficult to find out who the beneficial owners are. So although the database is going in the right direction, it is sometimes very difficult to find out who the ultimate people are and then sue them for doing these types of things in bad faith. But I just want to highlight the government is trying its best to crack down on these squatters and these hijackers. There are also now special courts that have been established in Guangzhou, Shanghai, and Beijing. I think it's also been extended to other cities where these courts only handle trademark issues, patent issues, copyright issues, and it is really helping foreign investors to maintain their brand and continue to utilize their brand in China. So if somebody were to own your IP in China, what does this mean for you? Okay, and this slide usually shocks people, but again, I'm here to scare you because I want you to protect your brand. Okay, so the first thing that I want to scare you with is that if somebody is owning your IP in China, it means it is illegal for you to sell any goods or services bearing that brand name or trademark in China. Okay, it's illegal, cannot do it. You'd be doing something very, very wrong. And the person who owns the IP would have every right to sue you for infringement. Okay, it is also illegal for you to manufacture or source goods that bear that Chinese trademark. Okay, what does that mean? It means if you are looking to sell your brand in China and your good holds that mark on it, or you're looking to ship it out in packaging that holds that brand on it, you can't. It is illegal. Okay, you cannot manufacture in China or source goods in China that have that brand in it because you've asked it to be put on. Okay, it is illegal for you to provide services locally bearing that trademark. Okay, if you're going to provide a service and your proposal, your contract, the invoices, everything is holding that trademark by performing that service, or you're utilizing tools during that service, performing that service, it is illegal. You cannot do that. Okay. In addition, it is illegal for you to market yourself in China bearing that trademark. Okay. You cannot do any marketing initiatives. You cannot open retail outlets on e-commerce platforms, which is also why e-commerce platforms, they now ask to see your trademark registration if you want to open a shop with them. Okay. They're trying to also protect themselves from lawsuits. So it is a criteria now if you want to open a shop on any of these e-commerce platforms to provide your trademark registration for the Chinese market. But you cannot do marketing initiatives. You cannot, I would not be able, if people from China were attending my webinar today and somebody had taken my logo and Woodburn, I wouldn't be able to do this webinar. I wouldn't be able to invite Chinese people to attend my webinar if somebody else owned this. It'd be illegal for me to do it. Okay. If likely that any goods you do manufacture will be seized by Chinese customs as counterfeit goods, and I have a case study for that I will tell you about a little bit later on. It is also possible for the Chinese registrant to freely manufacture goods under the trademark and export them to any other country where you have not registered your mark. So if, for example, you haven't registered your trademark in Brazil nor in China, and a Chinese person has registered in China, they can sell to Brazil. Okay, the whole trademark thing, especially if you're going into the Chinese market, is the point where you really have to think of a global IP strategy. Okay, because you're going to be moving goods, services, probably globally. Okay, and in any market where you are performing business, you should be registering your trademark. Okay, so what should be your trademark strategy in China? So I highlighted previously your homework. Okay, I'm going to highlight it again here. Your first step should be to conduct a search to know whether your trademark has been registered or not. Remember, classification of goods is class 1 to 34. Classification of services is 35 to 45. Okay, I cannot put the whole list here. It would be impossible. But if you have any questions regarding the classifications, let me know. Don't forget, under each of the classes, you have a tremendous amount of subclasses where you have to pick and choose what is associated with your business, which is why do your homework. Know exactly all the activities you're going to be performing with your brand name. If there are no problems after the search, then file as soon as possible. It is easy and quick to file. Okay? If you find that somebody is in the process of filing for your trademark and it has not been registered yet, or somebody has already filed your trademark, you need to talk to an IP lawyer, especially if you're looking to get that brand or mark back. Okay, you've got to understand what options you have. Options are, 1, you buy it from them. Option 2, you do an investigation to see whether they've registered under bad faith. Option 3, you wait 3 years. If they've never utilized that mark within a 3-year period, you can file a suit against them to take it from them. Okay? You got to talk to an IP lawyer. An IP lawyer should represent you in order to be able to understand these processes. Okay? And if you need suggestions on lawyers, don't hesitate to reach out to me. So there is a lot of homework, okay? Homework number 1, search. Homework number 2, know what you want to register, what trademark and brand and what combinations. Okay, what do you want to file independently or in combination? 3, once the trademarks, which entity do you want to own the trademark? Okay. 4, wait for the results. All right. Once you know the results and you have a percentage of chance for registration, you have to take the next action, either file as soon as possible or develop a strategy to get your brand back. I just want to highlight here how simple it is to register your mark. Okay. Now, I had a question like this in the past. Can you do it by yourself? Yes, you can. If you live near a CTMO office, you can submit the documents yourself. It's not a problem. The documents that are needed are power of attorney if you are asking somebody else to do the filing for you. Okay, the power of attorney just simply states that you are appointing somebody to do the application on your behalf. You need to have the trademark registration order form, highlighting the classes and subclasses. You need a soft copy of the trademarks in JPEG format. If you are registering also the color, you probably need to specify the color code. Okay. To give you an example, the red that I'm using is B5121D, right? So you have to specify the colors. You have to have a copy of the identity proof of the applicant. If it's an individual, it's a passport copy. If it's a company, it's the business license. And then you might want to have a priority document when priority is claimed. That's not always so easy to do though, but it is an option. Ultimately 4 documents, and then you submit. Not difficult. It is always a wonder to me why people don't put this at the top of their priority list. Okay. The application process is you file your trademark application, you submit the documents to the CTMO, the China Trademark Office. The CTMO will do their own search manually to see if there are any similar marks or identical marks that have been registered in the same classes and subclasses. They will also look at the registration documents. If they feel that your marks are too similar to some of those that have been registered, they may object. You can appeal. You have that option to appeal. It means going higher up in the ladder. Okay? Remember, what is the value of your mark and do you want to fight for it? There is one thing you should be fighting for, it is your trademark. Once the trademark has been accepted for registration, it will be published in the Trademark Gazette for a period of 3 months. If no objection by a third party, a registration certificate will be issued. This whole process takes between 12 and 18 months. I would say on average, it's about 14 to 15 months. So you may want to outsource that obviously to somebody who remembers to do the checks and follow-ups and updates you frequently to know what the status is. Okay? Easy. Again, just want to highlight 4 documents, minimum 4 documents. Very simple submission. Don't think, just do. Okay, I want to emphasize that. Don't think, just do. Number 1 thing that should be on your priority list. Okay. Now I want to highlight the China trademark, and my goal for the remainder of this presentation is to highlight to you why it is so important to register your trademark and why it is so important for you to register the trademark in terms of developing further strategies that optimize your structure in China. Okay, and I'm going to use case studies to highlight this. So I'm going to very briefly explain the China roadmap. So this is a China roadmap method that I created based on the experiences I have had, the experiences my clients have had, and the experiences that I've seen from my friends that have opened up businesses or have worked for companies in China. My belief is that there are 3 milestones for entering the Chinese market, and there are 9 superpowers that you have to obtain. First milestone is opportunity. You've got to educate yourself, you've got to do your research, and you've got to have a business plan and budget in place to know what your strategy is going to be. In terms of the second milestone, you're going to implement. You're going to develop an ecosystem, a network of individuals that can help you, guide you, and grow your business. You're going to create a protection system, and I don't mean just trademark, protection for everything. From employees, you want employee handbooks, you want to have protection on not just trademarks and patents and copyrights, you want protection on a variety of things, okay? And then you want to implement operational guidelines or system processes. The third milestone is where very few people achieve this, especially if they are entrepreneurs, startups, or small, medium-sized companies, because they haven't worked out the previous 6 superpowers. You want to focus on growth. Your ultimate objective should be to focus on growth. You want to grow in the Chinese market. You want to build your business. To do that, you need to make sure all of the systems and protection methods are inside so that it's done. You don't have to think about it, so that you can focus on your financials, you can analyze, and you can make decisions to grow your business, okay? That's the most critical. So I want to look at the first milestone, which is opportunity, right? Educating yourself, doing your research, as well as your strategy and budget. And the story associated with this case study is that you need to be able to create a short and long-term strategy for your organization, okay? So the first case study is a German lock company. They created locks like in the picture, and they entered the Chinese market through a distributor. And they used this specific distributor for a number of years. And by a number of years, I'm talking about 15, 20 years. Okay, so they've been in the Chinese market predominantly since the early 80s to the mid 80s. They then signed an exclusivity deal with this distributor who they knowingly knew this and they requested this, who registered their trademark in China in order to, as they called it, better facilitate their sales. Okay, so they went into the market, they signed an exclusivity deal with a distributor. They basically handed everything to the distributor to do, including registering the trademark under the name of the distributor. Now, yes, it did take time to grow. It took about 15, 20 years for the company to grow, but eventually they wanted to go independent. They wanted to get rid of the distributor and go direct to market and cut out the commission from the distributor. And what did they have to do? They had to buy their own trademark for an exorbitant amount of money to start this business alone. Okay, now you might say, well, you know, who knew after 15 to 20 years that they were going to do things on their own? You don't. You may continue and be happy to use a distributor for 30 or 40 years. But why on earth would you give somebody your brand? Why would you not want to maintain full control over what you actually created, designed, and own? Why? Ownership and control is critical for any business, and the brand is one thing you should be controlling and owning forever. And if you want to lend it out, you create a licensing agreement and you lend it out, okay? But you own it, okay? So what I want you to do, and again, it's part of going on this China roadmap. It's creating your own roadmap, right? Do your research, right? Research is all about creating knowledge and understanding, okay? And one thing that I would highly recommend to anybody is think about how you started in your own home market. How did you develop that business? What ownership and control did you retain? Over what did you retain control and ownership? Okay, you don't just give things for free and say, yeah, that's a great idea to facilitate sales, register my mark. Brilliant. Now this can go to any other form of protection as well, not just trademarks. It can go in the form of creating online social media sites. Who do you want to give that control to, especially as content is being distributed about you? So protection can be many, many forms, but again, highlighting today about trademarks, okay, and branding. Same if you're talking about patents and copywriting. You don't just give that away. You have built it through sweat and blood. Don't give it away. Retain it. No matter what the long-term, no matter if you don't know what your long-term vision is. Okay? Make sure you know and you're fully aware of what you're doing. And remember, you can always set up licensing deals. That's the whole point of this next step, is actually understanding that by owning your own brand, you can ultimately create licensing agreements where you get money out of China into your own pockets, right? If you don't register your trademark, can't do that. All right, then comes the implementation step. Okay, and by implementation, I'm talking about developing an ecosystem of partners that can help you to succeed in China, okay? Nobody can go into a new market by themselves. You always need help, whether that be from lawyers, from other forms of service professionals, headhunters, marketing gurus, whoever it might be, logistics providers, warehousing providers, people who know and are experts in their field, okay? You can't know everything. Nobody knows everything, okay? That's why I've got the Alanders group coming on today, so I can also learn more about customs clearance procedures and warehousing. I'm not going to pretend I know the ins and outs of all of that. That's not my expertise. So you got to develop your ecosystem, build your network. Networking is a key thing in China. Then you got to protect yourself, okay? And in terms of protection, it is everything from intellectual property, corporate governance, due diligence, contract formulation, invoicing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you got to develop these system processes. So let's talk about this case study, okay? Preemption is the best form of protection. So knowing what you have to do and then actually protecting yourself ahead of time. So in this story, what I want to highlight here is that it is not just about registering your trademark with the CTMO office. And this is where people get or don't know. They actually really don't know. I also didn't know this. I've learned this in the last 10 years. And I learned this specifically through this case study. So we had a client, a consumer products company, that actually in November got an entire shipment blocked at customs upon export, as the supplier registered that consumer products company's brand in China and then got it registered at the Customs Bureau as well, so that any goods with that brand coming into the country or out of the country would get blocked and halted. This consumer products company, they produced entirely in China, and they had about 150 different suppliers producing a variety of consumer products. They had a falling out with this one supplier, and they terminated the contract with them. And the supplier lost face, and as a consequence, did his own research and found that the company had never registered their consumer products brand in China. So the supplier registered the brand, obviously in bad faith, and not only registered it with the China Trademark Office, but then also followed up with the registration at the Customs Bureau. So I haven't highlighted customs in this presentation at all. So if we're just simply talking about trademark, we're talking about registering the trademark with the Trademark Office. But ideally, if you are importing and exporting goods, you will want to register it also with the Customs Bureau. Take a note. If you are selling or producing goods in China and exporting, you want to register your mark at the Customs Bureau. If you've already registered your mark in China, do a follow-up. Has your mark been registered at Customs? Okay? So as a consequence, this consumer products company could not take product out from any of its suppliers because the packaging had the brand name on it. Now, for some product lines, the product itself did not have the brand on it, those goods could get exported because they used plain cartons like you see in the photo. So there's no branding on the cartons, and they were able to ship it out. It was the products that actually had the brand on it, plus, you know, they got the cartons was easy to solve. The issue was some of the products had the actual brand on them, and they went to court. It took about 3 months. So it was November. They missed the whole sales period for Christmas. And then it was probably about March after Chinese New Year where they got a result of the court. But they had to go through lawyers and get this done. And I'll tell you what they said. They basically said, we are not selling in China. So, and we're not marketing our brand in China. And we're not doing any form of PR in China. All we are doing is very quietly producing our products in China through third-party suppliers, using logistics agents to get the products through, and that's it. So why would we have to register our brand? Well, you have to, because you're physically doing something in China with your brand, which is producing it, putting the name on the goods, and then exporting them with cartons that have the name on it as well. Okay, you've got domestic deliveries going to the harbor and all of that. So if you guys want to delve into this a little further, I'm sure it'd be a question that Kevin and Alan would love to talk about on Wednesday's session, and to hear what their experiences are. But this is just to highlight, even if you're doing no promotion, no marketing, no sales, no PR, you're quietly producing your goods in China. You're quietly delivering your services in China. You still have to register your brand. Okay? The next part is all about growth. So again, looking at being able to read your numbers, analyze them, and make decisions for future growth. So on this case study, I want to highlight the following. That you've really got to pay attention to all aspects of your business, or have somebody help you to do that. So there was a leather producer that established a joint venture in northern China. And only after 3 years did they approach us, and they basically said, look, we would like you to do a health check. We would like you to do an internal audit to answer basically the most important question for us, which is, why aren't we growing? You know, after 3 years, we should be profitable, and we just don't understand what is going on. So what came out of this internal audit and health check was the following. The financial management reports that were sent from China were not in English, but nobody from the foreign side asked to have them translated. So there was issues on both sides for that in terms of transparency and communication. Monthly transfers were occurring to the local JV partner, who ended up being his brother for no reason at all. The brother was not employed by the company. And the JV partner, again, you know, it's hard to say whether it was done in bad faith or whether it was to facilitate growth, registered the trademark of the overseas brand in China without informing them. So I think the fact that it was not informing them is a breach of the Good Faith Act. Now, joint ventures are already something that's very critical, okay? Because you're going into a marriage, and all marriages have bumpy roads. And sometimes they also end in divorce, okay? The issue in this situation is that this company never placed their trademark or their brand on a priority list. They never registered it, they never thought about it. And probably even if they had, they would have made the assumption, you know what, we're in such a good partnership with this Chinese partner, you know, even if he would register it himself, it's to build the business and to grow the business. It's a win-win for everyone. It's not. Again, why would you want to relinquish your brand? Okay, so there was basically there was a divorce that occurred there, and there were very hefty settlements that had to be settled. So this is really critical about registering your mark, okay? And I really do want to highlight all of these. So do think about developing your roadmap, create your bullet points about what would be critical for you in terms of protecting your business and to have ownership over what is extremely valuable and important to you. So let's recap the importance of registering your trademark. So number one, it's ownership. It's protecting your brand and being able to utilize it for your growth, for your international expansion into the Chinese market. It helps you to clear customs and trade with your trademark on cartons, on labels, etc. It helps you to provide services in China with your trademark being highlighted. Registering your mark means that nobody can take your brand away. You have it for 10 years. It is a 10-year investment. So even if today you have no intention of doing anything in China, but you're still on this webinar, yeah, you're learning about China. It's a 10-year investment that requires 4 documents, a little bit of homework, and a simple registration that takes 12 to 18 months. It's not complicated, not complex. A 10-year investment for you to decide if China is the right market for you. You have control over your brand. And last but not least, something that, again, people don't think about. Everybody is concerned, especially when they set up entities in China, about the Chinese government keeping their money and that, we'll never be able to get money out of China. Well, it's not true, okay? China wouldn't be where it is today with all of the foreign investment that it gets if you could not take your money out of China. For those companies that have not been able to do it, it's because they have not developed the appropriate strategies to do it. If you are looking to set up a company in China and you want to be able to get your money out faster than expected, the most simplest way to do it is through a trademark licensing agreement, which means if your head office owns the trademark, you have an agreement with the Chinese company to utilize the trademark. And every month, every quarter, you have the ability based on income, revenue, as whatever you like, to get money out. Okay? That is the long-term vision that you should be having. If you don't register your trademark, you will not be able to get your money out in this simple repatriation method. Okay? Again, I want to highlight, it's a 10-year investment where you're thinking about the short term, the long term, and most importantly, how valuable is your brand in the Chinese market for you? Okay? Probably you should be asking yourselves prior to that, how important is the Chinese market to you, first and foremost? And then how important is your brand when you bring it to the Chinese market? Okay? So 4 ways that I can help. Again, I'm not here to sell. I just want to tell you how I can help. One is advisory, doing trademark search, doing registrations of trademarks, and then obviously setting up these repatriation strategies. And obviously, if just simple brainstorming if you want to brainstorm. So if you want to talk about your trademark strategy with me, in the chat box, I'm going to type in a couple of things. The first is this link. You're more than welcome to set up a meeting with me, no strings attached, free of charge. Talk to me for 30 minutes, 60 minutes, as you wish, about how to protect your trademark, okay? You can set up an appointment directly in my diary. Or you can connect with me on WeChat. If you do have WeChat, I'm going to give you my ID. Don't hesitate, connect with me, say hi. I also have a WeChat community that I'm about to build up where I'll be giving daily updates and feedback and news. So if you want to join that, you can also let me know. Or email. You can also email me at Christina@woodburnglobal.com, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I actually don't know my link for that, but you can search for me with, I'm going to give you my full name, and that's how I'm listed. Christina Kohler-Felicia. So, again, don't hesitate to connect. So I'm up for now questions. Okay, let me start from the top. Let me go through. All right, Ali, you're the first one that's been asking questions. We are planning to expand to China through franchising. Our potential partner insists on co-branding, so they want the business to use 2 brands, ours and theirs. What are the pros and cons of doing this? Under what circumstances would you recommend a client to accept this? I don't think there's, Ali, I actually don't think there's anything wrong with co-branding. because you're leveraging your brand and you're leveraging the brand of your potential partner. The thing that you have to think about is who's going to own those brands. So Ali, you should definitely have ownership over your own brand, and you should be registering your trademark in China. My assumption is your partner, out of fairness, will own his own brand and hopefully will be registering it in China. And what you should be doing is basically saying, you know, we each hold the trademark registration certificates, and it's a way for you, Ali, to also create a repatriation strategy to get licensing fees for the use of your brand in China. Now, another way that I would see co-branding, and again, maybe you have to tell me if I'm right, is maybe are you going to create a new brand, like a new mark with both names in it? Then the question is, who's the owners? In that situation, you may want to create a holding structure where each of you holds 50% of the shares and you both register that unique brand that has the two names in China, that you can both get licensing fees out of there. That would be a fair and legal way that I would recommend doing that. So it depends on, you know, you should anyway register your mark. He will have his own mark, I assume. And if you create this unique brand together, then, you know, think about having a holding structure that owns it, 50% of the shares owned by each, or if you want 51%, it's all negotiation. But at least you get licensing fees out of China through that unique brand. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But again, you need to have, when you create that holding structure, you need to have a shareholders agreement that highlights everything related to that IP. So you probably do want to talk to an IP lawyer about the intricacies of that, okay? And understand exactly what are your rights, what can you get out of it, and what happens in case of a breach of that shareholders agreement. All right, so then Mustafa, you were asking how long does the registration process take? So it does take between 12 and 18 months, on average between 14 and 15 months. Generally at the 9-month frame, 9 to 10 month frame, you will get the news where it will go into the Trademark Gazette. My belief is that once it gets into the Trademark Gazette, as long as there is no appeal to it, you're pretty much at the end of your journey, positive journey. The 3-month Gazette publication takes 3 months, and then it takes quite a while for the registration certificate to be issued. So you've got to understand that. Mustafa was saying, does Woodburn do that for you? Yes, we could do that for you, not a problem. We can also do the trademark search. And then renewal occurs, Mustafa, 6 months prior to expiration. The mark lasts for 10 years. So 6 months prior to the expiration, you'll want to go through a renewal process, which again is the same 4 documents that you kind of have to sort out. All right, Mark has left, but he still asked some very interesting questions. Is this hijacking in itself illegal? Hijacking or squatting is illegal because it's being done in bad faith. If it was being done in good faith, we wouldn't be talking about it. It's being done in bad faith, so it actually is something illegal. The issue is, how do you prove that it is being done in bad faith? It is extremely difficult. That's why, you know, you want proof, and you want to have an IP lawyer on your side who can defend you and go through those types of negotiations and also tell you what options you have. Mark then said, I assume that's, can anyone register a trademark? Yes, anyone can. You just have to submit the trademark documents in person to the CTMO office. Would it be possible to have the slideshow and recording? Yes, Claire. The presentation, the PPT, as well as the recording will be distributed to everyone once everything is uploaded. David, very good question. Is it expensive to register a trademark? It is not. It depends on everyone's fees. I'm not here to sell to you guys, and I don't want to reveal my fees on this webinar session, but it is not expensive. It is actually probably the cheapest thing you are going to spend compared to making your investment in China. It's just that people forget to do it. So I definitely recommend everyone to think about it. And remember, When you look at that cost for that trademark registration, trademark search and registration, depreciated over 10 years. Okay, you got to think about that. Douglas was asking, what does registering under bad faith mean? It means registering with the intention of doing something negative to that brand. Okay, if I was going to register a brand under my company name in good faith, it would be because I'm telling the brand, listen, I don't really, I mean, for me, I don't want ownership. I'm sorry, I would never offer this service, by the way, but it would be basically, you know, being as transparent and clear, saying I own the brand. I'll send, I don't know, you charge me like, I don't know how to work out the scenario. I've never had that question before because people don't do it in good faith. But basically doing it in bad faith means that you want ultimately something monetary from the company that's going to be going into the market. Then there was a long message here from Madhav. Hi, Christina. Before a company can even think of exporting their products to China, so the first thing they're suggesting is that the company should register their trademark and IP in China and then think of exploring the market. Will that mean that once a company produces something new, they need to register that IP product in China, including the designs? Yes. So basically, well, pretty much if you're on this webinar, you've all done something in China already, which means that you should be thinking about registering your trademark now if you haven't. If you are planning on doing research and development and you're planning on producing new product lines, yeah, and you want that brand to be on it, you need to register that brand as soon as possible. Robert was asking, our trademark is registered in black and white, but also used in color, in a variety of colors. Are we not covered if they're registered in a different color? It depends, Robert. It's very hard for me to gauge that and really understanding. If the black and white is registered, generally speaking, the mark is fixed. However, so I'll give you an example for my business. So in my previous company, we had a logo, which was a square box with the character Zhong in the middle of it. So it was a blue box. The coloring Zhong was in white. And we never registered the logo because that really was at that time not important to us. The name was what was important. And we used the name for all marketing initiatives, and we just put the logo on. Funnily enough, a competitor didn't register, but utilized the same trademark, but in red. And instead of having the box red, the outline was red. There was a light red square, inside was white, and the Zhong was in red. Pretty much the same. He also never registered it. But I basically had a competitor. If I had registered my logo in blue, you know, it would have been a very subtle thing. If he would have just made it a little bit different in red, he could have utilized it. But I think the ultimate outcome was we both didn't register it and we both just continued to utilize it. And people did mix us up on it. The next question from Robert is, should the company name also be registered in Mandarin? Totally up to you, Robert. I have not registered my Chinese company name in China because I don't use that for marketing. I only use Woodburn Accountants and Advisors, and that's English. So what is your strategy? Are you planning to market a Chinese name in China? Or are you planning only to market your English name? Are you planning to market both? If it's both, you need to register both. Jihong said, how do you register a trademark with the Customs Bureau? Basically, it's taking your trademark registration certificate and probably some application documents and going to the Customs Bureau. I've never done a registration at the Customs Bureau myself. I would probably recommend doing that through your logistics provider. Jihong, this is a question you can ask Kevin and Alan on Wednesday, if you're joining on Wednesday. Matsik said, why does it take 12 to 18 months to register? Matsik, that is the golden question. If I knew how to answer that, I would tell you. That is just the bureaucracy in China. Basically, from what I understand, the CTMO does a manual check. of all trademarks within those classes and subclasses, and that can take up to 10 months because there is a back file of registrations. And after that 10-month period, there's 3 months on the Trademark Gazette. And then once those 3 months are up, so already you're looking at 10 plus 3, you're looking at 13 months. It takes about a month to 6 weeks to get a certificate issued. If there's a bigger backlog at the CTMO office, you're going to have a longer period for that first 10 months. Mustafa was asking a very good question, which is very hard for me to answer. We're also working in the US. How would the US-China relations affect the trademark status? In other words, would the US impose sanctions on China and companies working in with China? Mustafa, I'm not a US lawyer. I'm not a US expert. I can't tell you what would actually happen in the US. I can only tell you what would happen in China. And right now in China, there would be nothing happening, regardless of the relationship with the US. If you are utilizing your US company to trade or provide services in China, services not so much. If it's the trade of goods, then obviously you have tariffs on the goods that are being imported or exported to your US company. If you're using another entity elsewhere in the world, the US relation has no impact. So it depends on the direct trade, and predominantly the issues are only associated with tariffs versus anything else. So Elizabeth, your question was my DIST in China. I don't know what DIST means. My DIST in China did the registration in China. We have a doc that states the registration belongs to us, and he has sent us the originals, and it states that we are the owner. Yeah, with the name and the address, that should be okay, right? Absolutely. If you have a trademark registration certificate that's in Chinese, and if you're not sure about the certificate, you should go ahead and get it translated. I mean, there's no harm in getting a document translated. It should also state the classes you have registered in. It should provide a picture of the mark that you have registered, the classes and the subclasses, and who is the owner and who is the owner, correct. What is the standard fees for trademarking in China? That was from Nick. Again, I'm not going to reveal my fees on this webinar. If you'd like to have fees, you're more than welcome to send me a message. Daniel was asking, one question is, if I have a company named ABC elsewhere globally, and it is an established brand name, I arrived to China to find out ABC is already a registered company. From your experience, what should I do? Daniel, there's a difference between a registered company and a trademark registration. Okay, registering your company with ABC does not mean that ABC is registered at the trademark office. It's two completely separate applications. Neither one has anything to do with each other. I have clients who have registered, I'll use your example, ABC with the trademark office, and ABC was not available for the company name registration when setting up the company. Okay, so the two are very separate applications. So if there's a company with ABC listed in China, you have to do a trademark search to know if they've registered that trademark or not. And if they haven't, then it's open to you for use. It's just they can't use then that trademark that you've registered for marketing initiatives or promotions or on products. Hi, Mike. Isn't there a mechanism that enables the actual overseas owner of a trademark to claim it back despite its registration in China? At least if it hasn't been used for a period of time. Yes, the period of time is 3 years. So if somebody has registered your mark in China and they have not utilized it at all for a period of 3 years, you have the ability to apply for an appeal to get that mark back for you. Oliver, if one company has already xxx.com registered, does it need to register xxx.com.cn or xxx.cn in China? Okay, so domain registration has nothing to do with trademark registration or company registration. Domain registration is also a form of protection. So if you will notice, woodburnglobal.com does not have a .cn registration because that is not my target market, okay? But yes, if you are looking to go into China and you want to have a .cn website to protect yourself, go to GoDaddy.com and register. I mean, I only know GoDaddy. GoDaddy.com to register your domain today. You're going to spend between 10 and 50 US dollars to register it. But yes, do it. It is a form of protection. The issue though, Oliver, and I want to say this to everybody that's still online, is the following. Trademark registration takes 12 to 18 months. Company registration takes 6 months. You could register your domain name today. You obviously want to make sure that all three kind of match, right? So for use, for marketing and promotions. But it depends again on your strategy, whether you're just using English names, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if you register your domain today and the trademark result says that that name isn't available, you're gonna have to come up with another solution. Okay, so all three are very different steps in terms of registration. They're not combined together. Kim is asking, what about web name and IPs? Does trademark protection also include web names? No, they do not. Domain name registrations are something that's very separate. Okay, it's not the same as a trademark registration. All righty, we are done. These are all the questions that came in. I'm gonna wait a couple of seconds if somebody else has something else to add. Through every, no, I hope that I didn't. Again, if you want to set up with a meeting with me, you're more than welcome to. Happy to go through your trademark strategy and how to develop then future profit repatriation strategies through it as well. And then last but not least, look, we've got 3 more presentations. We've got creating your trade model for tomorrow, look at customs clearance on Wednesday, and warehousing options on Thursday. If you haven't registered yet, go to our website, woodburnglobal.com/events. I'm going to add that in here as well to make it easier for you. And you can click on it and go ahead and register for the other webinars if it interests you. Should be a really exciting week. I'm hoping to learn a lot on Wednesday and Thursday myself. So definitely join in. And like I said, today's presentation will be provided to everybody and the recording will also be up on the YouTube channel. I do want to thank everyone for joining me today. I hope it was helpful and I scared you a little bit. But please do join us again for the remaining sessions. Thank you all so much and goodbye.